You mistake me for a human, that we share the blood of Jord. I am no son of humanity. My life for the Yin.
Hello and welcome to the Cardboard Crash Course. My name's Ethan and this is the Twilight Imperium channel. Today's faction guide is going to be on the Yin Brotherhood, one of my favorite factions in TI. This will be as they appear in the base game of Twilight Imperium 4th edition, upgraded with components from both the Prophecy of Kings expansion and the Thunder's Edge expansion. Although alongside most other factions, the Yin Brotherhood only got a single new component in Thunder's Edge, they are one of the ones that changed the most due to this new expansion, so this is going to be an exciting update video. This will be both a component overview as well as an in-depth, more strategy guide style later in the video. Now, I want to go over two things really quickly. The Yin Brotherhood already got a faction guide a few years back on the main Cardboard Crash Course channel, and you're totally welcome to still go watch that. Because of the new expansion, those videos are being labeled as outdated, and every single one of the 25 factions that I've already done faction guides over there are going to be redone on this Twilight Imperium specific channel due to the Thunder's Edge expansion coming out. The second thing is that you can support the Cardboard Crash Course with a YouTube channel membership, and the student and professors get exclusive videos made just for them, including a tie-in video with the Yin Brotherhood's lore. In that video, I do a dramatic reading of the Yin Brotherhood's faction sheet to get you ready for your first or 500th game with the Yin Brotherhood. And I want to give a special shout out to the Cardboard Crash Course professors, Big Al Cappuccino, Cameron C, and the new Christian N. Now without further ado, let's jump into how the Yin Brotherhood plays with the two expansions to Twilight Imperium 4th edition. I really think the Yin Brotherhood is up there in my top 5 favorite backstories, so if you get a chance to read this or check out that member exclusive video, I definitely suggest it. Anyway, they start off with a simple technology called Sarween Tools. This is a zero prerequisite yellow technology that reads, when one or more of your units use production, reduce the combined cost of those produced units by 1. Now, that's only when the actual production ability activates, not any time you could produce, but it is helpful for getting their infantry out there. Which, speaking of getting their infantry out there, we have 2 carriers, a destroyer, 4 fighters, 4 infantry, and a space dock. Having the 2 carriers and 4 infantry is super nice for the Yin, and we'll talk about that later on when we get to the actual overview. Now flipping up to the front, this is a 2 commodity faction, and similar to the Crimson Rebellion, this is very low. But unlike the Crimson Rebellion, the Yin Brotherhood don't have too many ways of making it up, except that they start on the planet of Darien, a 4 resource and 4 influence planet. Of course, you can't spend both unless you're in specific circumstances, but either one of those being that high is very useful. And we're immediately going to get an idea of how the Yin Brotherhood operates, and how much they care about their infantry with this first ability. The ability printed on their faction sheet is Indoctrination. At the start of a ground combat, you may spend 2 influence to replace one of your opponent's participating infantry with 1 infantry from your reinforcements. And then we have Devotion. After each space combat round, you may destroy one of your cruisers or destroyers in the active system to produce 1 hit and assign it to one of your opponent's ships in that system. So not only do they indoctrinate, they also kind of kamikaze into the other players. Now each one of these abilities ties in very closely to one of their 2 faction technologies, the first being Impulse Core, being tied to Devotion. This is a 2 yellow prerequisite technology, and it says, at the start of a space combat, you may destroy one of your cruisers or destroyers in the active system to produce a hit against your opponent's ships. That hit must be assigned by your opponent to one of their non-fighter ships if able, letting you take out a ship of theirs before the combat even begins. And then the Yin Spinner technology, which was updated due to Thunder's Edge through the Codex printing, and has 2 green prerequisites, is tied to Indoctrination. It says after you produce units, place up to 2 infantry from your reinforcements on any planet you control, or in any space area that contains one or more of your ships. So one of them likes blowing up their own ships, and the other one likes producing extra infantry out of turn. Now keep in mind you're going to want to put these infantry in a place where you can actually hold them with capacity, but other than that, it's pretty free to use. And next up, I want to talk about their two faction-specific units. The first being the flagship, the Von Haug. Again, that makes me so sad for their lore, and the next one's going to be even worse. But anyway, this is an 8 cost, 9x2 combat value, movement of 1, and capacity of 3 flagship. It also, of course, has sustain damage, but it has one of the most interesting and fun abilities of any flagship, which is, when this ship is destroyed, destroy all other ships in its system. It's just a giant bomb, and it can actually be pretty useful. Now that second unit is Moyen's Ashes, which is the mech introduced in Prophecy of Kings. It's 2 cost, 6 combat, and sustain damage as normal, but has a deploy ability. When you use your Indoctrination faction ability, you may spend 1 additional influence to replace one of your opponent's units with 1 mech instead of 1 infantry. This is sort of almost like half the cost and placing it in a really nice place, but of course we'll talk more in depth on that later. Now we'll move on to their exciting leaders, starting with the agent Brother Mylor. After a player's unit is destroyed during combat, you may exhaust this card to allow that player to place 2 fighters in the destroyed unit system if it were a ship, or 2 infantry on its planet if it was a ground force. It does not work with Indoctrination, but it does work with Impulse Core, which is interesting, and it's just more of that creation out of nowhere abilities. The next one is the Commander, Brother Omar, and it's the character that you see at the front of the faction sheet. Now, it unlocks by using one of your faction abilities. That could be either Indoctrination or Devotion, at least using it once. This doesn't count any other cards or units or any other abilities like that. Faction abilities are only the ones in this little box here. When he does unlock, though, you get a pretty flashy, fun ability. This card satisfies a green technology prerequisite. Also, when you research technology owned by another player, you may return one of your infantry to reinforcements to ignore all prerequisites. And finally is Daniel of the 10th, the High Priest of Yin. It's the hero. You unlock it by having 3 scored objectives, of course, just like any other hero. And when Daniel unlocks, they give you the ability Quantum Dissemination, Blessing of the Yin. As an action, commit up to 3 infantry from your reinforcements to any non-home planets, and resolve ground combats on those planets. Players cannot use space cannon against these units. Then, purge this card. I'll talk more about how this is super exciting in a little bit, but just know this was heavily buffed with the Thunder's Edge expansion, even though it didn't technically get any changes. Now, second to last here is the last card that gives you an ability, the Yin Breakthrough, called Yin Ascendant. It's a yellow-green breakthrough, which is just great for them, and also says when you gain this card or score a public objective, gain the alliance ability of a random unused faction. That is so weird, because it's one of the only completely random abilities in the entire game, but that doesn't mean it's weak, and we'll talk about that more in a bit. And finally is their last card, the Promissory Note, which you give out to other players, and they gain the ability Greyfire Mutagen, which, once again, if you know their backstory, is really kind of sad that they're giving this out, but hey, whatever. At the start of a ground combat round against 2 or more ground forces that are not controlled by the Yin player, replace one of your opponent's infantry with 1 infantry from your reinforcements. Then return this card to the Yin player. And that is the final suite of Yin components. So let's get into the overview to see how this all comes together to make one strategy that gets you towards the throne of Mechatol Rex. I'm gonna be honest here. When the Yin Brotherhood was shown to me for the first time in TI4, the base game, I was a little bit unimpressed. To me, they just seemed like lesser Federation of Soul, because the Soul could just orbital drop and create units wherever they needed them, but the Yin had to go about it in a weird indoctrination style of way, and I just didn't really see the connections between all their abilities. They were there, but maybe they just weren't for me. That being said, Prophecy of Kings and Thunder's Edge have given some weird economic and even some powerful random abilities to the Yin and injected them with so much life. I think the Yin are so much fun at this point, especially for my playstyle. I like to split these faction guides into technology, economy, flexibility, and then other cool elements. So before we get ahead of ourselves with talking about the cool breakthrough or hero or anything like that, let's just talk about their start. Sarween tools as their start definitely helps with both the technology and economy element. Now, Sarween tools, I do want to get it out of the way. Unfortunately, the bad part of it is that it doesn't work with producing units, which is going to be a couple of things that we talk about here. It only works with the actual production ability. This is reducing the cost by 1 every time you use the production ability, and is especially helpful if you take Warfare first round, but either way, anytime you activate a system with a space dock or other unit with production, you'll be able to get an advantage there. Now, that was more dogging on it, but what I want to say good about this is not only does it help with the synergy, which we'll talk about in a second, but also it's better to start with Sarween tools than it is to research it. The reason for that is it costs at least 4 resources in most situations to research a technology, and even though Sarween tools has no prerequisites, you do have to get to it by researching. So if you've already spent 4 resources into it to research it, then the 1 resource that it negates every time it's used has to be used 5 times in order for it to be worth it. But you completely delete all of that diminishing returns if you actually start with Sarween tools. Now, the rest of their start is actually pretty decent. They have 2 carriers and 4 infantry. The reason why this is important is because you can go to 2 separate systems and explore 4 planets without even having to produce anything else. They do have a destroyer alongside the rest of this, which to them is not a faction-specific destroyer, but you can kind of treat it as that because destroyers and cruisers have to do with a couple of their abilities that we'll talk about in a minute. They don't have any Dreadnought or PDS, so the home system does need a little bit of protection at some point, but just keep in mind the flagship is maybe that protection that you'll need. So we've talked about technology and the plastic, but let's talk about the planet. Darien, and rest in peace Darien, is a 4 resource and 4 influence planet. This is phenomenal. You can either use this to research technology with the technology secondary, or you can build on your home system with the 4 resources, or you can even get a full extra command counter, which you might need. Depending on whether you fix your economy or not, you may actually need the economic advantage there of getting an extra command counter. But you have a special relationship with diplomacy with 2 very high values like that. So it's actually funny because I said I like to talk about technology and economy, but with the Yin Brotherhood, these are intertwined, and it's impossible to talk about one without talking about the other. And the reason for that is that all of the Yin Brotherhood's economy, outside of a couple things we'll talk about in just a moment, but most 90% of the Yin Brotherhood's economy comes from the planets they take and the planets they can hold. If you can't take planets and you can't hold planets, you're falling behind. The Yin have to be strong. They have to be powerful enough to destroy things in the space area and not only take the planets, but hold them until the next round in order to actually use them, because they don't have very much economic advantage. They only have 2 commodities and 2 things they can sell to other players, being the really nice promissory note and the agent. The promissory note is basically just a single use of the indoctrination ability, which naturally costs 2 influence, so you could really sell it to somebody else and say, hey, I'll let you do it for a discount, just pay me 1 trade good and you can indoctrinate, or whatever. And I love that the Codex tweaked it so you can't use it on the Yin player. That's absolutely a 2 thumbs up change. The agent you should most likely use on yourself, but somebody else at the table will definitely pay you to save their units. Being able to replace a unit and place 2 more units back on there is a chef's kiss for actually holding a defensive planet. I'm not going to really touch on the agent too much more, but just keep in mind that it's going to help in every single situation where you're trying to take a planet and can be used as an aggressive stance as well. So anyway, that's their economy. Fix it up a little bit by selling promissory notes and doing the agent, but otherwise, you're going to want to take planets. And in order to do that, you're going to need Yin Spinner. I think the two Yin faction technologies are two of the most integral technologies into somebody's kit that any of the factions have. Yin Spinner just lets you place 2 infantry not only on any planet, but even at any space area of a system with ships. Of course, you're going to want those to have capacity, but you could just move those along. This could be before they actually move. So you can place them and then move them the next turn, and boom, you have even more of an aggressive group to take planets. Impulse Core is weaker than Devotion, because Devotion, you can assign it to one specific ship, but Impulse Core just is assigned to any non-fighter ship. You could definitely use it alongside Devotion, because Impulse Core happens at the beginning of space combat, and then Devotion happens at the end of each space combat round. So as you continue to do things, they work together. So in the base game, how the heck was Yin supposed to go up yellow from Sarween tools, and then cut over to 2 green in order to get Yin Spinner? Green, like low green, is not even that worth it, and this is all fixed by the Thunder's Edge expansion. The breakthrough is a green-yellow synergy, which is one of the most just straightforward, awesome synergies of any faction. It's so perfect for them. Let me explain. The Yin are going to want to go up either yellow or green, most likely green. Getting Hypermetabolism and Neural Motivator, getting an extra action card to help you with different combats, especially space combats, because you have less bonuses to space combats than ground combats, so any action cards you pull to help you with that is fantastic. And then also on top of that, the extra command tokens to just kind of give you peace of mind. Every single one of those extra command tokens is going to be helpful because of that lack of economy we talked about. So once you have those, you have everything you need to get both Yin Spinner and Impulse Core, considering the fact that they're synergized together. And at that point, now that you have your 2 faction technology, one of 2 things happen. Either you continue to go up yellow or green and get one of the 2 super powerful for them abilities, X89 Bacterial Weapon or Integrated Economy, which both of them have incredible different ways of play, or you use their commander to start researching blue technologies. So X89 has an ability where hits produced by your ground forces are doubled. Imagine how nice that is as the Yin to be able to take planets with just a couple of infantry while you're indoctrinating one at a time. You could be making mechs even, and even mechs hits are doubled. Now you could care about the bombardment, and that might just come in handy every so often, but what you really care about there is the updated text that says you can double the ground combat rolls. And then Integrated Economy, on the other hand, holy cow. Being able to produce units with the up to the resource value of the planet you're landing on is not only a ton of fun, but also triggers Yin Spinner. And it's up to. Just spend a single trade good, you get 2 infantry, and then you get 2 infantry somewhere else. You can just absolutely generate so much value with Integrated Economy and X89. X89 also works alongside Infantry 2, which Infantry 2 I'd say is like something you can think about, but don't really worry too much about it. It's helpful by 10%, and that 10% can mean winning the game or not, I know, but I would prioritize getting to your faction techs and just having more infantry with Yin Spinner before upgrading the infantry themselves. Now, if you have an Entropic Scar in front of your home system, go ahead, do both. I won't stop you. Okay, let's backtrack, sorry. Back to the Commander. The Commander allows you to cut over into any other technology that you're interested in. Obviously, even though we care about green and yellow tech, blue technology is still powerful. So whether you need Lightwave Deflector, Gravity Drive, Assault Cannon, these are all powerful, high cost, high prerequisite things that you're normally never going to be able to get to. But with the Commander, not only do you get a green prerequisite, which is very helpful if you get it for round 1, but also helps you just cut over to those after you've gotten your faction techs, or even in between getting your faction techs, is super helpful that you don't actually have to go up the whole path. This is what I'm talking about with the Yin. They were just stuck, and then Prophecy of Kings gave them a path to walk down, where Thunder's Edge then widened that path. So anyway, that's technology with the Yin. Now, I did skip over Dax of Animators, which is interesting. It's a single green prerequisite technology that allows you to place an infantry after winning a ground combat. It's not bad. I just think that you should probably put your efforts into Yin Spinner itself before that, but hey, if you want to try it out, I'm not going to stop you. So we've talked about technology and economy, but the technology part is all about their breakthrough. So let's chat about that for a second. This breakthrough, Yin Ascendant, is one of the only ones I think you absolutely need to sacrifice something for round 1. This is incredibly diminishing returns if you don't get this early. Not only are you not getting the extra action card, command token, Yin Spinner infantry that I was talking about with technology, you're also getting less and less of the actual ability of this card the later you get it. This is a random alliance ability that's not in the game. Now remember, this is a little rules thing. If you're using the alliance card to actually take a person's commander ability if it's unlocked, that's the alliance promissory note from POK, you just place it next to your commander as a reminder you have that ability. And if you ever lose the alliance card, you also lose that reference card. But if you ever get an alliance ability by being able to draw it, you just place it into your play area. So this ability gives you a permanent ability you cannot lose unless you're eliminated. A Discord member that's going to be on screen touched on a couple fun ones that you can get. The Nomad being able to produce your flagship for free. Hilarious. We'll chat about the flagship in a second. The Winnu being able to take legendary planets easier with a +2. That's going to be super helpful for your hero with Mechataller sticks. The Sardak one, being able to move infantry from surrounding systems into a planet. And the Mahakt Commander. Now this one doesn't actually work with your play style, but it's just one of the most busted ones in the game, so if you get it, good job, I guess. I just have to be completely honest with you though, this is not something you plan around. You should get it early because if you get one of these powerful abilities, it's very, very nice to have, but I can't tell you exactly what to do with it. You're going to have to be tactical, not strategic. This is the sort of thing that heavily favors experienced players that can be tactical and be able to be flexible in situations when they're handed them instead of planning for them in advance. And that leads me perfectly into the tactical nature of the hero. You're going to want to use this in the Fracture. This is exactly what I was talking about at the very beginning of the video when I said that Yin was changed a lot by the expansion. And it's not because of the breakthrough, although that was awesome, but it's about the Fracture. If the Volwraith Cabal are in the game, and sometimes the Firmament, you can pretty much guarantee that the Fracture is going to come into play. And most of the time, if you're playing with 6 players or more, it's going to come into play anyway, but you cannot guarantee that. If the Fracture comes into play, you have a new opportunity. You can take your hero and commit 3 infantry to Styx, which is the planet with the legendary planet ability to gain a victory point as long as you have it. This can either help you win the game or just solidify a victory point, maybe because you couldn't get that point somewhere else. Not only that, but you're only doing ground combat. You're completely skipping the space combat, which means that all of the neutral units that protect Styx are now protecting you. Now, if the Fracture doesn't come out, or if you want to do it a different way, the original kind of cool thing with this hero would be to cut down onto Mechatol Rex, or onto specific planets that you need in order to score a public objective or use the Imperial card. Now normally I try to stay away from strategy cards in these guides because I'm going to make an actual strategy card video, but Yin does have a specific relationship with the Imperial card, considering if they score extra public objectives early, then they can get more alliance abilities early with their breakthrough. Anyway, the hero does have inherent value because you get those 3 infantry, and absolutely powerful opportunistic value being able to place it exactly where you need. It is a non-home planet, so you can't immediately use it to winslay, but you know what you can use to winslay? The flagship. Okay, so if you get the alliance ability either through the breakthrough or by just creating an alliance with the Nomad, this is all going to be thrown out the window. But other than that specific situation, this is how I feel about the flagship. The flagship is kind of like an 8-cost super PDS, in my mind. It doesn't work at all like that, functionality-wise, but it kind of has a similar feeling, because I like to view the flagship more defensively than offensively. Sure, you could use it to winslay, and having that opportunity is very nice, but what I really like to do is just park it over a system that I want protected. This doesn't absolutely prevent that system from being invaded or taken or anything, because somebody could just come in and then someone else could come in, or they could send 2 different things if they're using warfare, but it does orchestrate other people's actions. The combat on the flagship is pretty bad, and the movement is pretty bad, and capacity is almost useless, although of course it's nice to have capacity as the Yin, but you might as well just use a carrier. But being able to just keep it back defensively and plant it on a system that you need to either score an objective or keep your home system or whatever is definitely useful. You'll notice that I haven't talked about the mech at all, and that's because you should probably do it if you can. I don't know. I mean, I feel like that's pretty straightforward. It happens only once at the start of a ground combat, so it's not like you can continuously use something, but I always just want to tell people keep at least 2 influence off to the side, or 2 trade goods, or a combination, or whatever. And if you can keep 3 without having to have it for something else, then good for you. The mech is definitely better than an infantry. You'll notice that sources from the Cardboard Crash Course Discord have appeared throughout this guide. That's because those people have given me ideas that I didn't think about already. If you want to add your own sources for future faction guides, please join the Discord server down below. And that's honestly the Yin. I would give them to a new player because it's just basically do your faction tech, do things that help you take planets, and then cut over using the commander into more positioning technologies. And then, as far as their economy goes, it's just taking and holding planets. And then once per game, you pretty much just get to take a planet that you need. It's not a guarantee with their hero, so don't absolutely bank on winning the game on it if you can help it, but it is helpful. And then sell their promissory note whenever you can, and use their agent on someone else if you're not going to use it on yourself. Things like their breakthrough and yin spinner get them early, and make friends with the table in order to make your money. I'm so happy with how straightforward, streamlined, and kind of excitingly random the Yin have become, and I'm absolutely looking forward to playing with them again in person soon. Thank you so much for watching. If you want to check out other faction guides on the TI channel, that playlist is down below here. And if you want to check out more with the Yin Brotherhood and that lore tie-in video for channel members, that video is right here. Have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you next time. Pax Magnifica. Bellum Gloriosum.